everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Layman's Law School. And this time we are joined with a couple of extra people, and once again, without Chase Hawk. Sean Merzlack.
Sabbatical. Chase is always
happening?
on. I mean, he's busy. He's got things to do. He claims today that he's actually doing lawyer work.
I think he's actually doing his job today.
I don't know about that. Back for the second time.
I think he slipped in like, oh, by the way, I've got a deposition tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, who plans a deposition on a Friday afternoon?
No one.
We do this every other Friday.
No one. Yeah. Yep. He knows when it is.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to sabotage. But Lindsay is back once again, crowd favorite. So she's back with us. Lindsay McCullough, thanks for coming again. And you're going to lead our discussion in just a second.
Okay.
We have another special guest, one of the partners at the Hawk Law Group, Mr. Kip McAllister. Yay!
Had to give this thing another shot.
Welcome, Kip.
Didn't make it last go around.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it is interesting. We've done some significant research. We had Kip on the show one time in the past, and that's just considered the lost episode because it was never.
I never saw it.
It was
I
never
never saw
published.
it.
I didn't.
We've asked,
You got a lot of pressure on you.
Genuine
Just
and
wait.
D'Angelo and everybody where these things went. They have no explanation.
No clue.
Well, when it comes out, it's going to be hot.
Well, before, Lindsay, you take us to what we're here to do. Talk about some of the
somebody
law.
has a really special day tomorrow. And so since we're going to deviate from a little tradition, it's Sean's birthday tomorrow.
Happy 57th, man.
Yeah,
Happy
happy
birthday.
birthday.
I'm finally 30. I mean,
It looks good on you.
So we're going to take our cheers with some high noon
Love
instead.
Nooners for Shawnee.
So, and also maybe nobody will complain about us.
the only
Yeah. Somebody will have something against
Well,
them,
let us know in
too.
the comments how you feel about high
the
noon.
only vodka seltzer
Cheers.
you should drink.
Well, there'll be somebody that have something against,
Delicious.
I wouldn't go
Yes.
there. I wouldn't go there.
All right, so
What we got, Linz?
we have an interesting down in Coffee County. They've got some stuff going on. So a Coffee County, Georgia funeral home manager is facing 17 felony charges related to abuse of deceased bodies after a disturbing discovery. So basically, I think he was getting served an eviction notice, and when they turned up, they found 18 decomposing bodies. In the articles I saw, they didn't get very specific, I don't think, about where these bodies were. But I think, obviously, that's really disturbing. But when they talked to people also that knew him or had worked with him, people would talk about how kind he was and gentle. And then other people were like, yeah, but I paid for a death certificate 2 years ago that I still haven't got from him. So there's really conflicting opinions about this guy. And there hasn't been a lot about why, I don't think.
Where is Coffee County, Georgia?
It's in Douglas, Georgia, right? I think.
Douglas.
Yeah, down there
South?
by Valdosta. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's south. It's definitely south.
It's a little warmer down there, too.
I mean, it's just a confusing set of circumstances. I mean, I don't know how much it cost to the actual provider of the service to discard of the body. Obviously, he was behind on his bills because he was getting evicted.
Behind on his work.
Right. So I'm saying, I don't know if it's a weird thing. Was he trying to save money and not performing the act? Does it cost a bunch of money to
run the incinerator?
To run the incinerator? I don't know.
I mean, were they all waiting for cremation? That was my question.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, if I have a loved one that I've entrusted in a funeral home, and I'm like, we'd like to have the funeral, in a week.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, my loved one is still decomposing. Where was the funeral?
No, I think they had the funeral, and he gave fake things. So that's why it made me think it's money.
Yeah, I mean, the most concerning thing for me in reading some of the articles.
He gives you a bag and says, here's your...
Well, I mean,
they were trying to identify the remains.
A cremation, he could fill up a bag of play sand and be like, here's your...
Right. What I'm saying is, what do you think? You think it's money? You think what?
Well, I mean, the odd thing is
or creep.
He in the articles that I read, he had not gotten his proper licensure or not renewed his license. So I don't know if he was trying to do things the right way and got behind. Maybe
he didn't know what he was doing.
It just doesn't make
any sense.
He
didn't even know. He didn't have a license. He had no idea how to dispose of a body. I think he was
probably...
He just taking people's money.
He was probably reeling. I also found on Facebook a page where he was trying to be the county coroner, I think. He lost. He lost.
Oh, this is payback.
I think it was like
For all
2022.
those
I had to look it up,
SOBs that didn't vote for me, I'm gonna keep your loved ones in my
I think
basement.
maybe he was just.
Yeah. I
on
mean,
a
just
downward
kind of an
spiral.
odd case all the way around. I mean,
Yeah.
how long had folks been there? And, now they're having to go back and identify them, which is scary. So it's, if you have a family.
weird.
Well, I mean, I don't
there,
think Coffee County is that big of a place, so I think it would be pretty easy
that's
to be
John.
like, did you have anybody that had anybody die in the past month? Please just come talk to us. We need to see if one of these people belongs
Sean,
to you.
you've been an investigator. Is that how you would handle it?
I'm a fan
Where do you
of
start?
keep it simple. If-
public service announcement.
I mean, if
and-
there's 10,000 people in a community,
Yeah.
everybody gets the local newspaper there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everybody listens to the local radio. You say, and when something like this breaks out that makes national news, everybody in Coffee County knows
Oh, yeah.
about it.
No
So
doubt.
everyone
No doubt.
who had a loved one that even dealt with this guy in the past probably year or two is coming forward just to make sure that they weren't swindled in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. I
Well,
guarantee it.
Kip, you've done criminal work in the past and been a prosecutor. How do you go about this as the state?
well,
I don't know all the charges. I mean, there's 17. I don't know.
Yeah,
all,
I think it's for each body, but I
Okay.
mean, to me, the weird part about this is, that whole intent, the intent aspect of it, and how do you prove? I'm not as familiar with this particular statute, but how do you prove that he intended to do something in a malicious way? It's just kind of a.
Is that what it says? Malicious as well?
Well, I don't know that's how the
Yeah.
statute exactly reads, but in general,
Right.
he
Yeah,
had an
is this- I mean,
obligation
you
or duty to handle these in an appropriate time frame, and he didn't do it.
The,
It's
the
just-
statute that at least the news is claiming
Sure,
he was charged
sure.
with is reads that you have to willfully deface a dead body.
And well, then you get into the definition of what is deface.
And willful. I mean,
100% willful. That's the
Right.
first. I agree. What is that? People think it's crazy out there, and this is what lawyers get a bad rap. And even Bill Clinton back in the day, he said, "What's the definition of is?" And I think that's taken a little too far. But there certainly is a difference of opinion on what is willful.
right.
I mean, I don't know, especially in this situation. And then willful do what? Willful deface it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what you classify all defacing of.
Well,
Letting it do
I mean,
nothing?
in most people's mind, I think they would think that, willful defacement of something would be like an act of criminal trespass. Like
Sure.
someone took a can of spray paint and started spray
Absolutely.
painting, private
Absolutely.
property that didn't belong to them. They are willfully defacing or destructing something.
This is the
more
opposite,
of
though.
a negligence thing.
Right. That's
But
what I'm asking.
if you know that you have these obligations
and don't do them,
and don't do them willfully,
Right.
and it causes this defacement,
which has to be clear that it's going to do that.
Sure.
Which in this case, obviously, if you don't dispose of
I mean,
a dead body,
if
it's
you don't
still-
have a refrigerator at a certain temperature,
it's gonna go
decomposition
bad.
is going to come.
I think everybody from Hurricane Helene, I know I am one of them, opened my fridge and can tell you, if you don't have just even
Proper
lettuce,
refrigeration.
how about lettuce? That's in a big pile of goo.
How about a deep freezer full of grass-fed, grass-finished beef and wild caught organic salmon and halibut? Thank you, Emily. That was very
the good
expensive.
news-
I didn't have any of that in my freezer.
Yeah, I didn't know either. But the good news, Sean, there's a $500 cap, so
Cap on what?
recoverable
To get your-
perishable
yeah.
goods.
Oh, good to know.
I didn't have any damage to my house.
Oh.
I don't even have an insurance claim. It's just money, just
Gone, just gone,
gone.
gone.
Well, I think
Anyway, sorry. Go
with
ahead.
this guy, I mean, with respect to the criminal charges he's facing, obviously he's got an uphill climb, but I mean, obviously he's got some civil liability too for all those families.
That's what I was going to ask y'all because
Yeah,
there's a
we're-
bunch
yeah.
of families that are saying that he didn't, like they paid him for stuff that they didn't get.
Sure.
And particularly
Well, I think
these
there's
18
two.
bodies
Yeah.
that they paid for services.
This is we've talked about this before on the show because it always comes up, and I was going to wait until we kind of went through each part, which is fine, Kip.
Sorry.
Talking out of
No,
turn.
I'm joking.
Won't get invited back.
No, but
Just
me and Sean talked about it. I'm sure law school you had the exact same situation of intentional infliction of emotional distress and how it never comes up in the real world. Well, if these people have to go identify the body,
After it's decomposed.
After it's decomposed.
Correct.
I think you might be able to do it here.
Yeah.
I think
This
you
will
might
be
be
the
able to do
case.
it. Yeah, because it's such a bad thing. Like it's such a. What do you? I mean, Sean, what do you think?
Should we
I
open
would
an
think.
office in Douglas, Georgia?
I don't remember
Little satellite office?
what the because we don't deal with it.
No, yeah.
Whether or not
Standard,
that is
yeah.
a statute in Georgia or a claim. Whether
it's a claim.
intentional is, but
Right.
I don't think negligent infliction of
Right,
emotional
sure.
distress
This
is.
would have to rise to intentional.
So I would think that this would be more of a negligent intentional, or
But you can make the
negligent
you could certainly make the
infliction
argument
of
that it's
emotional
intentional
distress.
in that the same logic that you went through earlier, that if you give me this and I have this duty, it's kind of intentional if I don't do it and I know it's going to happen to you. I know these bodies. It's just one.
Sure.
It's just one more level. You know the body's going to decompose. Sooner if you get called, you know you're going to have to. I mean, you still know that that's the result of your inaction.
Yeah, I mean
That would be my argument at least.
Yeah, one family, at least in one of the articles, indicated that they'd called 50 or 60 times and could not get a response. They see his vehicle parked at the funeral home and went to the funeral home and knocked on the door, but he wouldn't come to the door. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
he
good
obviously
right there. Yep.
that would all go to that willful negligence,
Sure.
Right.
which would rise level to
What so, I mean, that's there would definitely be some summary judgment motions. What else? You'd have to fight through and see what judge you get, and then I think if you get it to a jury, not. And here's what a lot of people need to understand. So if you get this to a jury may award, and rightfully so, just millions on millions of dollars. The odds of
no one's going to get a dime.
No one's getting a dime. Please explain.
Well, I mean,
that was my point. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you're in this, obviously he was in some type of financially, precarious position, that he wasn't paying his bills, wasn't getting his proper licensing, was getting evicted. The likelihood that he was actually paying for his, insurance that would cover type of action like this, errors and omissions insurance or umbrella policy, is unlikely. So if there's no insurance available,
let's say there is, right? I mean, the odds of him having insurance that's more than like $25,000 at a funeral home, I would think would be. I mean, it may be 100,000, 200, 300, but
I don't know. Yeah.
funeral home doesn't seem like a dangerous occupation, so the insurance would probably be pretty low.
Very minimal.
But anyway, that's all the point.
And
But
then
even if he
then you
has
might have to split that amongst 18 different
people,
families.
yeah, he might have $100,000 between 18 families.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the whole civil side of it. Is, I mean, I think that it's ripe for a judgment, but the recoverability is almost zilch.
Yeah.
Did y'all notice that there was 18 bodies they found, but there's only 17 counts?
Must have had a fresh one.
Yeah.
What is that? I
Could have
mean,
been.
but
No,
seriously.
it could have been like only survivor or something like the family. Could have been a homeless person. Who knows? I mean, it could be.
Well, I'm a little shocked that that's not pointed out. Like, what is this one body that he's not getting charged for?
And
was it
we,
not?
We get very little
know.
information. All these
Maybe it wasn't as old as the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could
all these reports are
It could
based
still
on
be within that time frame where it's not
Right.
where it was like you said, freshman. You're
Sure.
joking, but it still could be in the time frame where he could still perform the duty to
So they
fill out
can't
what he
charge him
did.
for it because
Yeah.
it's technically not
Yeah.
Or
legal
maybe
yet.
it's not a felony. Maybe that one was a misdemeanor some kind of way under
wasn't
some other
decomposed
charge
enough or something as gross as that sounds. But that's, I mean,
Yeah.
it has to go into it.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe it wasn't within several weeks of the body coming into the facility or something.
It's just sad because before I knew about like the eviction process going on, I had heard about it, and immediately I started thinking, well, we just went in Augusta, Georgia, here through, weeks and weeks of being without power because of Hurricane Helene, and that's what I thought about. Like, oh, well, where is Coffee County? Was it in the hurricane path? Was it because they lost
That's a good
power?
point. I didn't
And
think about
these
that.
places,
That's a good point.
they didn't have a backup generator to keep the bodies cold type thing. But then when I found out about the eviction process and a little bit more,
I don't know. Did they get hit? Because I mean, could it be some of that at least?
It doesn't
I don't
sound
know.
like it because
Yeah.
there were other families complaining
Valdosta's
about
on the east coast of Georgia, right?
Well, it's closer to Tallahassee, but this is a little further in the path of where the storm would have hit. But I mean, based on some of the complaints and the length of time, I mean, this goes back far greater than just a few weeks.
Right.
So I think that this was something that had been ongoing for quite some time.
Did y'all? So I also found I went to the funeral home website, right, and read like the testimonials. And I don't know. I mean, they speak very highly of this guy and his, if they're real, right? They could be fake testimonials, but talking about, just like I said earlier, how kind he was, and so to think that he intentionally, I don't know. I'm focused on like this why. I want to know why, and we may never. We may never know,
part of
right?
the problem in a civil case. Is like you said, you got to rise to. It's not just negligent. You got to rise to intentional, and obviously, if the defense is going to put up all the people that knew this guy.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, "Oh, he wasn't a bad guy." Look at, all these people are saying, "No, he couldn't have done it intentional." It's not an argument over did it happen anymore. It's an argument over why it happened.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't have that in criminal at all, but in civil, you got to rise above just it happened. You got to go, he meant to do it, or he should have known it was going to be a result if he didn't do it. That kind of. So
but could you argue on the other side that, well, if he had financial difficulties, then like he was put in a situation where it was out of his control to let that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it would probably be more of mitigation, as in trying to lessen whatever punishment, as in I accept responsibility for what I've done, but there's reasons for it. And, in situations like this, whether it be a funeral home or whether it be, a TV repair business that's taking in customers' money, or in this area we have a big thing with pool companies that are taking deposits for pool liners, deposits for and never coming to do the work, or they come and dig the hole and then they abandon the customer after they've taken a $30,000 deposit and done one day of work by digging a hole. So all those places, when it all boils down to it, in my past criminal investigations, as well as people that I've represented, those people readily admit that this is a financial issue. Things might have been great for this guy. He might have had great client reviews on his website and everything. At some point, he got involved in something, or his finances went south, and he had this issue where he's wanting business to come in the door to pay for, very likely, somebody that paid for something weeks ago. And then, okay, I've got that one taken care of. Well, I've still got 18 bodies here. I need another customer to come in the door so I can get rid of the oldest one.
Peter to pay Paul.
That's exactly.
You know what it reminded me of? The first thing I thought of when I read it was, if you're a fan of Yellowstone, this is early season 1. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Of course.
I know every single one of them.
I do.
Spoiler alert if you haven't watched Yellowstone. But Rip goes to this funeral home, and the funeral home guy that's there has been dipping his joints in embalming fluid, right? And getting this extra high. And Rip ends his life, obviously, but he lets him smoke one more time. And I just thought to myself, I was like, man, did this guy get so down? Like, maybe he's addicted to embalming fluid. And
that's it's a leap. That's a leap.
But that's what I thought of. I mean, because you don't see stories like this every day.
More about you than it tells about.
But you don't see stories like this every day. So that's what I associated it with.
So I do got a legal question for Kip. He's he's pretty good at turning people out there. I hate to boost him up
on a podcast.
I hate to boost him up when he's sitting right beside me, but he's got some pretty good skills.
It's just rare that we get him over here.
I know.
I mean,
just across the river.
He runs our Aiken office. He runs it phenomenally.
Right.
But it's
fair,
like pulling teeth to be. Lindsay comes over here all the time, and she's out of the Aiken office.
Exactly.
Kip is like, hey, Kip, you want to come over? No, bro.
I might be over there later on.
Friday afternoon.
That is true. He's got it right after Friday afternoon. So, all right, Kip. So here's my question. In this situation, let's say there's money, right? Let's say that this guy is insured. Who knows how much that is, but he does have insurance. All right, and it comes into your office, and you're going to help these people. Who can bring a case? Who can bring a claim? And how would you evaluate it and set it up?
Well, I think obviously the family members of the deceased in Georgia have to have a personal representative appointed for the estate to bring a claim. So that would be first and foremost. You kind of have to go through the probate process to get the appropriate person appointed to be your plaintiff. From there,
in the layman law school ways, we got to explain. That's what we're here for.
Yeah,
Kip.
yeah.
It's you got to get somebody to represent the group.
That's right.
I mean,
yeah, you need a family
the family.
member that oftentimes they may be an executor of this named in a will, or it just could be a spouse or next of kin that would be in line to represent the family of this person that's at the funeral home. And then from there, I mean, obviously it depends a lot on the facts that emerge, but as Sean mentioned, at the end of the day, you have a negligence claim. This guy had a duty of care to provide these services. He accepted money for these services. He clearly breached that duty on behalf of these families, and they've been damaged as a result. So clearly there's a claim there from a civil liability standpoint, not just a criminal
So
standpoint.
one thing you said that I wanted to mention, and I think this is important to mention, is that you said clearly there's a negligence claim. And we deal with this all the time, but we skipped over because we were saying, all right, does it rise to intentional? Does it rise to willful? Blah, blah, blah. Well, that's down the road. That's the legal stuff.
Sure.
If it's negligent, you take it in, and then you see what the law allows, right?
That's
like
right.
we don't know, and the law may not even know. On some cases, the law may not actually know on this case. It may be different from any other case that's happened.
Yeah.
There's a chance, right? So you don't know what level you have to go to. So we're talking like hypotheticals, but if it came into the office, I'm looking. If I think it's negligent, that's when we're setting it up. We're going to try to, see what the next level is if we need it.
Yeah.
Well, and it very well may be one of those cases that we, spend 3, 4, 5, 7 months on. And in the end, there's no insurance.
Right.
We do through due diligence. We know
the
that
level's
this guy,
higher.
We know this guy has no assets whatsoever, and we have to sit down with the family and discuss how, again, we hate that this happened to your family member. But there's just no really legal alternatives for us to provide you with because we're going to spend a bunch of money and get nothing at the end.
One distinction, too, I mean, the statute that we're looking at is a criminal statute.
Right.
Well, the
That's a
criminal
good
charge requires that willful disregard
Yeah.
to the rights or safety of this family, these individuals. On the civil side, it may be a little bit different. Maybe willfulness isn't required. Maybe we don't have to get to that level. But there are different degrees of negligence. You have your ordinary negligence, then you have gross negligence, which is a little step up, and then above that is the willful negligence or recklessness, which then gets you into a potential for punitive damages, that sort of thing. So I think that's one distinction that we would look at in an investigation of the potential claim and whether it arises at that level.
That's a perfect segue because when I looked at it, what the media is reporting that he is charged with is this willful defacement statute. There's if you just flip the page, there's another statute that is also a felony offense that is just abandonment of a dead body, which is not one of these willful type, destruction or abuse or defacement type thing. And I would think that by law enforcement would be a much easier thing to prove that these bodies were abandoned in some way, shape, or form and left to decompose, as opposed to willfully defacing.
Both of you guys have been prosecutors. So, I mean, when you take a case in as a prosecutor, I mean, are you going to, do you start high? Do you start low? What's that like in this situation? I mean, if you don't have all the facts yet, are you going to charge him with the felony or the misdemeanor?
Well, they're both felonies, is what I'm saying.
Oh, they're both felonies.
They're both
I'm
felonies,
sorry.
but there is a.
Do you start high and then if you find out more and then you drop it down? Is that?
Would I know?
Right, but is that
the
how
standard
work?
practice is shoot for the stars, overcharge, and maybe we'll get them to plead to something lesser? Yes, in my experience. But I would be looking at the facts and evidence that we have, what I would expect the evidence and testimony to be at later on, should I have to try the case, and how it fits with regards to the criminal statutes that we have in existence.
Sure.
And what does it mean? and what is it most easy, to meet.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. One thing that I don't do criminal law now, but one thing I do not like is when they overcharge a particular crime and then indicate, especially from law enforcement, and they say, "Oh, we'll figure it out later." Well, no, you need to charge the crime that's occurred. Do the facts meet the elements of this particular statute? If so, then you charge that crime. You don't overcharge it and hope for an outcome or force a plea deal or something down the road. I mean, you need to charge it.
I 100% agree. Obviously, I mean I think it may be a situation in this case where it was so shocking to whoever's taking the case in, they may have gotten mad and I don't know, but I'm saying it's a possible because of that other statute. It's also possible that it just was reported wrong too. He could have been charged with both.
Well, and it's also possible that the law enforcement agents called a supervisor or something.
They don't know the code.
What are we going to charge these people with?
I wouldn't know.
Criminal offenses in the state of Georgia are under Title 16. This is under Title 33.
Yeah.
This is not something that they're taught in the police academy that they're familiar with whatsoever. So they had to do some research or they had to call somebody, and it might have been, this is the statute. Even though there might be once it gets to attorneys in the district attorney's office who are prosecuting the case, they may say, well, this abandonment statute is more appropriate. That may be the accusation or indictment that is actually pursued against him.
I'm going to say this with all due respect because I know there's going to be a pun in there, and I do not intend for it to be a pun. But there's no other way to say it. We've worked with Vic for a while, all of us have, and one thing that he would always preach and talk about is if something smells bad, it's probably something there.
Absolutely.
And I think that we do that in civil work all the time because there's no possible way to know every single civil law there is. There's just not. But generally, you say, well, use your common sense. If it doesn't seem right, then there's probably a way to recover for it. And this is one of those rare circumstances where I think criminally you do that. You go, well, this doesn't smell right. I got to charge a guy with something because this is outrageous behavior. I mean, you can't.
It's not one body. It's 18.
It's
17.
It's insanity. So that's no pun right there. It was just purely Vic. That's Vic's. That's Vic's go-to line.
Worked out
well. One quick story about it that it doesn't smell good, but sometimes it is fine. There was a local place that was they're not a funeral home, but they're like a transport company for deceased individuals, and their facility was like out there. Somehow their refrigeration for their storage units went out, so they then had to bring in a reefer truck or a refrigerated truck to store these bodies.
That's not what I thought you meant.
And it was running. Well, Kip, we say what the Presbyterian University is into, but someone asked, why is this truck running in the back? No one knew what this business really was because it's got a really odd name. It doesn't display that this is what we do type thing.
Dead to you or something.
No, it was not.
It was not conspicuous. It
was a very dignified name that has, had nothing to do with what they do. And someone just asked them, hey, why is this truck just running nonstop?
Yeah.
And they said, hey, this is why. So they immediately call, the law enforcement, and I immediately get a call as an investigator that this is absolutely, there ain't no way that, dead bodies are allowed to be stored in a truck, you need to go figure this out and, go down there. They have all the licensing things. It's just the fact that, hey, our refrigeration stopped. We had to go do the right thing.
Gotcha.
We had to go do the right thing and get a refrigerated truck in order to keep these bodies at the proper temperature prior to them being transported to the morgue or to for autopsy or to different funeral homes types thing. And had to call them back and be like, hey, it didn't smell good, but everything's on the up and up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, what's amazing to me about that is the fact that there is this business that exists for that very purpose. I mean, who would have thought that you could make some money
rent a truck.
to rent a truck to store bodies in this particular situation?
Well, no, they use refrigerated trucks for food.
Well, they probably got them from Diddy. Let's be honest. Diddy had those.
Along with the baby oil.
Yep.
We ain't got enough time to get into all that.
That's another day, another time. Kip, you got any
I don't have anything
parting
with Diddy.
shots? Parting shots before we
What is
wrap
your
it up?
prediction for what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Here, well, there's probably a guilty plea in the future. But I think that
What do you think civilly?
I agree. I mean, I think the question is strictly about coverage. I mean, does he have coverage that would apply, and what's that number?
Yeah.
You know, he probably doesn't have assets that would be, you know, that you could go get in the event
And
that you
I
had
will
a big,
say with this,
big
we didn't
judgment.
talk about this. One thing that we would also take into consideration is if you got 17 victims and you have a limited amount of money, it's kind of a race at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, first one there to
Well,
you know,
and,
file
I
a
mean,
claim.
and
At least a
even,
little bit.
Even
'Cause they wouldn't
nowadays,
file
it's
together.
not even a race. The insurance companies have already identified how many people are involved.
Sure.
And they're the ones reaching out to you saying, we want to pay this money. We know we owe $100,000.
Yep.
That's all we owe.
That's very
because that's
true.
our policy.
That's very true.
And we're going to give you each, $22,167. Will you accept it?
Yeah,
Did you
they're
do
gonna
that math in your head?
No.
they're going to
Oh.
prorate it though. They're going to prorate it based on the number of victims and then
Sure.
the amount of coverage, and then everybody's going to get the same.
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
that's the way it
same
should be in
offer.
this situation. But I mean, I've had situations, I'm sure y'all have, where there's somebody left out or somebody they don't, they're presenting something. You're going, no, that's not right. There's or somebody's doubled up in there. So you got to still another reason to at least check with an attorney on situations.
Absolutely.
I totally agree.
Anyway, so Lynn's, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just happy to be here again. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's always
I
fun.
hope you come back. Chase,
Maybe you'll be
we
back
missed
next
you.
week.
Not, I mean, whatever, man. Just do you, buddy. As always, no, we love you, Shawnee.
I mean, maybe he thought that, hopefully he wishes me a happy birthday tomorrow.
You
if
think
he
he was
doesn't-
intimidated by my performance last time?
Very possibly.
I mean,
But
I
he
thought it
goes
was
he goes on these
subpar.
spells, on these sabbaticals where
Yeah.
we might not see him for another 3-4 weeks.
we don't
Right.
know.
I'm
We'll
just
figure it
hoping
out.
this makes a cut. That's all. I just want to, make an appearance.
Kip, if
we'll
it
be
doesn't, it goes in the archive
Yeah,
with
it goes in the
Really?
vault.
We don't know
Everybody
where
out
that
there, we
goes.
hope you
Kip
see it.
McAllister,
You
the
know, we
Lost
don't know.
episodes.
that's for another day. But as always, like and subscribe. I get in trouble when I don't say that.
Follow or whatever.
follow, yeah.
And
all
turn
that
on your
other stuff.
notifications.
We're really up on how to do all this.
Yep.
So,
Turn on your
turn on your
notifications so you can get alerted when
notifications.
there's
There
new
you go.
episodes.
and next time we'll be here maybe with Chase, maybe not. Maybe we'll just have permanent Kip and Lynn's. I like it. All right. Until then, see you next time.